to Finding Calm in the Chaos. I am Denise, and this is my podcast. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Finding Calm in the Chaos. I'm Denise, and we're going to jump right into this today because I have a lot to go. So this might be a little bit longer than 30, maybe run 45 minutes. So this is something I've really, I'm still working on today, and that's fragile feelings. And I know that sounds kind of, like a term that is a little almost derogatory in a way, but fragile feelings can really make or break how you're dealing with your everyday life. Okay. So there are habits that I went through that made me emotionally fragile. And I will tell you that just working on me all these years, but I spent about 2 years working on fragile feelings. Like everything cut me to the core. I felt like just the littlest things sometimes people would do would cut me. I felt like I was being stabbed in my heart. And that is fragile feelings, right? So the very essence of being emotionally fragile means you're having a hard time managing not just difficult emotions, but all emotions. And little bits of worry that are things that people worry about every day can throw you into like huge cycles of anxiety. Some people can even like go into panic and stuff. I never got that far, but anxiety, insomnia for sure, right? Small bouts of these little sadness, streams, led me into spirals of self-criticism, depression, and that in turn caused a lot of irritation, right? So a little bit of irritation because I'm cutting at myself, right? All the self-criticism, and those little bits, little by little, literally would just ignite into a huge anger episode that could sometimes last for days, where I would just go on and on. It's just, and that's no way to live, like at all. I was miserable, miserable. But it's a possible. So let me just preface the whole series with that. It is possible to escape this pattern of being, having fragile feelings, right? Emotional fragility. And to learn how to be emotionally strong, resilient, and be able to deal with stuff. Now, again, I worked almost 2 years with a different therapist. This is my current therapist is Amazeballs. But I dealt with a previous therapist for these specifically fragile feelings. And I learned that the key to overcoming it is that you literally need to be and want to be in control of your own emotions. But in order to do that, you need a better relationship with them. And most of this stems from not wanting to face their emotions because it brings them to something, in my case, that a lot of times I just was playing a victim and I blamed everything on my, poor childhood and like I said, I had a great childhood, I'm alive. They did the best they could. Was it ideal? Nope, not at all. But do I stem like all my adult problems based on the fact that I had an alcoholic father? No, I don't. I don't. I mean, you got to get over it at one point or another, right? Many people, including myself, have unhealthy relationships with their emotions just simply because they're afraid of them, okay? We get in the habit of running away and not facing them because they're painful emotions, right? We fight or flight. It always happens. I don't know if I just said flight or flight. It's fight or flight. this reaction is what trauma triggers in your brain. And when these fragile feelings and emotions from traumas are in your brain at a constant, we see them as dangerous. And that makes you more afraid of the emotions in the long run. I spent 40 years chasing around mine, running from them. I should weigh 100 pounds easy. And, one of the things that I struggled with was that I didn't want to admit that it was me, that I didn't want to face the emotions. It's really that simple, but it's hard. So if I wanted to feel stronger, when I was having difficulty with my emotions and they were feeling specifically fragile, I had to unlearn the habit that kept me afraid of them. And that's facing a past, a situation, something about yourself that you don't like, that you don't want to really acknowledge. I mean, we all feel, emotionally fragile at one point or another. But if you're feeling this way constantly and it's interrupting with your way of life, you're probably in a pattern of habit that causes these. And I don't know what your habits are, but I could tell you what my habits were. And once I was able to identify them, again, I knew that I could become more resilient to these feelings once I identified what they were. So for me, the first one was trusting my thoughts. Oh, if you think about all the people that you deal with every day, in and out, you probably, they're not all on the same trust level, right? The guy at the bus stop, probably don't trust him as much as you trust your mailman. I trust my mailman. I like him. As much as you would trust your spouse, right? You got high levels of trust with your best friends, your close family, your spouse, moderate levels, maybe with, somebody you work with, right? And we usually have, my favorite example of a low level of trust is like government salespeople. Just saying. It's normal, okay, and smart to trust people to different degrees, okay? And the same is true of your own thoughts, okay? Not all of your thoughts and my thoughts deserve to be trusted equally, okay? Because again, we've talked about this many times. Our worst enemies are sometimes, and most always, ourselves. And the critical talk that we give ourselves negatively every day, hundreds of times without even actually speaking. It's just our own thoughts. And so, a lot of it is misguided and random and downright untrue. And it is normal that this happens, but you can stop it. When it races into your mind, you have to immediately shut it down. This takes practice, right? Over time, I was able to become a little more resilient because I didn't trust blindly every thought that crossed my mind. Well, I'm thinking it must be true. No, that's not true. Your thoughts and your constant, those are basically, it's kind of like our self-destruct, our human self-destruct. There you go. That's what I wanted to say. And it's literally there just waiting for you to do something, and then creeps in there because we want to self-destruct ourselves on occasion. Some people more than others, right? It's emotionally resilient people understand that they shouldn't blindly trust every thought that crosses their mind. I did not know that. Because if you do, you're setting yourself up for fragility immediately. Because if you're accepting every thought or worry thought as true, you're ending up chronically a mess. You're anxious, you're depressed, you're having meltdowns, you're having rage episodes like I was. If you accept every revenge scenario as a good idea, you're going to be totally overly aggressive. Me, 100%. Anybody who's known me, I would say more than a decade, knows I had aggressive issues, like severe aggressive issues, all because of fragile feelings. It didn't make me strong. I wasn't aggressive because I was strong natured. I was aggressive because I was fragile. If you accept every self-criticism as a valid and accurate criticism, yeah, you're going to probably end up with pretty low self-esteem. And if you're already there, like I was, yeah, you're there. Start changing it. You're already one step ahead of a lot of people because you already know. You already know what's going on there. So if you want to stop the emotional fragility first, you need to start cultivating a healthy skepticism of your own thoughts, right? You can go ahead and listen to them, but don't be afraid to dismiss them if it doesn't serve your purpose, right? If it doesn't serve a justified and a proper purpose, if it's putting you backwards or in an ill state of mind, it doesn't serve you, right? Because sometimes our thoughts are just that. It's a thought. It's a thought, peeps. Another thing you got to do, I had to rely on coping skills. And I did it so bad that it's really bad. So this is a big trap. And it's really normal. I mean, I fell into it. I'm sure tons of other people did. I know I was in a support group and there were a ton of people in it. So we all kind of fell on this. But a common trap is that people with fragile feelings fall into is basically relying on coping skills to feel good. Yeah, not so good, right? So what's a coping skill, right? They say coping skills, right? All it is a bad habit. And it could be a good habit disguised as a bad habit or a strategy, right? So it would be if we take out the good and the bad of the coping skill, it's going to be a technique or a strategy, right? That you use to short-term feel better. Okay. Yoga, you start meditating, deep breathing exercises when you feel stressed, right? Repeating your mantras when you feel bad about yourself, right? It happens. Texting your therapist when you're feeling down. Yeah, that's me. Yeah. I had at one point I had a therapist getting a message like 3 times a day. When coping skills have their place, relying on them can be super dangerous. So they're basically emotional prescriptions. Think about that. They're only temporarily making us feel better, and they rarely are hitting on the underlying issue ever, right? So when I started relying on coping skills to manage like the difficult feelings I was having, it started getting risky because it was leading me on and encouraging me to treat my emotions themselves as the problems. The emotions were not the problems. That's never the case, right? So like physical pain, painful emotions, they're just signals, okay? And they're giving us a signal, just that. They're trying to alert us that something needs to be worked on. Something's wrong here. Something's off, okay? Fear isn't a problem. It's the message that your brain sends that something in your life is dangerous or not working, right? Sadness isn't a problem. It's the message that our brain is sending that we've lost something valuable. Anger is not a problem. It's the message that my brain thinks something in my life is so unjust that it needs to be dealt with right now and insanely aggressive. It's just, if you're constantly treating your emotions like problems, then they're going to keep feeling that way. There's no surprise there, right? It just makes sense. Reading my notes here. I honestly do keep notebooks from all my therapy, so bonus points for all of you. Breaking promises to yourself. Anybody with fragile feelings, we struggle to keep promises because we have low self-esteem. Low self-esteem. We could be and look and appear on the surface as the most confident people. And there are lots of, underlying causes of low self-esteem. But there's one thing that almost always keep people stuck in it. And that's people with chronic low self-esteem have usually gotten in the habit of breaking promises to themselves. You're not going to do rest this afternoon like you said you were, because instead you did more laundry. You're not going to go and have coffee date with that because you're too tired and you don't feel like it. Those are lies to ourselves. And we keep telling each other over and over, we'll try to do that. I mean, think about it. If I'm just going to talk about me. If I'm constantly breaking my promise to myself, how am I supposed to trust myself or be proud of myself? I'm not, because I'm constantly letting myself down. It's so like evidentiary, but like we don't get it. We're hard heads on this. Okay. It's hard to tell myself that I'm going to be okay if I don't trust myself. Okay. I'm sitting there, I'm stuffing my face with whatever food I've got because I eat out of emotion, right? Like a lot of people do. And I'm going to be worried about, I'm sitting here eating, saying it's going to be okay. Well, it's not. I was just here last week eating the same Reese's peanut butter cup, and it's still not okay. We're on week 5, You have to tell yourself that you're going to be okay despite all your worries if you don't trust yourself. Yeah, that doesn't work. If you constantly tell yourself that you're going to do something and you don't do it, and it sneaks up on you, it sneaks up. It's hard to fight back against self-criticism and all these doubts when you're not even proud of yourself, right? And so the powerful way to fight back against fragile feelings is to start keeping the promises to yourself. This was huge for me. And it seems so common sense, but yet we do it all the time. And the trick is to start small, like little steps, right? Don't just be like, I promised myself I was going to Europe. And then, you're in the middle of a financial crisis. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Start small, right? If you say you're going to finish, straightening out the kitchen cabinets by Friday, do it by Friday. If you say you're going to call your friend after work, call your friend. Even if you don't feel like it, you just have to do it, because you're not going to feel like it, because you're complacent in not trusting yourself, right? You're complacent with breaking any promise you make to yourself. And we're stronger than we think, people. We're stronger than we think. But we're never going to feel that way until we start learning to trust yourself and myself. It's just how it is. So we have I don't even know how many I did. I think I did 3. I don't check them off. I just look. Yep, I did 3. So I'll come back and do another 4 things that I did. There's more, but I thought these were the more important ones. And we'll take a break and talk to our Pet Matrix sponsors. Hey friends, I've got a question for you. How much do you love your dog? This was an easy question for me. Lots. As I started to look at the ways I could increase her quality of life, I realized there were just too many options. How was I going to choose? That's why I partner with my friends over at Pet Matrix. Taking a scientific approach, they combine organic, natural compounds with highly effective peptides to aid in my dog's health journey. All you need to really know is that the results are nothing short of amazing. All I had to do was sprinkle the dry formula onto her food once a day, and I've got my Shiba back. Our Princess Shika has been using these products for more than 6 months now, and Pet Matrix has given our 14-year-old Shiba Inu the energy back in her stride. She's out in the yard taking steps in a single bound and chasing down the bunnies. I also shared Pet Matrix with my mom to help with her 15-year-old Chihuahua Molly. And like a lot of dogs, Molly is tightly wound like a rubber band when it comes to fireworks. Adding a little of the Pet Matrix Calm to her water every morning gave Molly her first 4th of July without the shakes and crying. And that's what we want for our dogs. Pet Matrix helped me understand that building around the 3 pillars of health, immune and gut support, cognitive function, and mobility and inflammation, we can not only increase their quality of life, but also increase their quantity of life. Shika and I are all in. You can check out Pet Matrix at www.mypetmatrix.com and tell them Denise sent you, because we love family-owned businesses. You will receive a 15% discount using promo code Denise15 at checkout, so you can help your furry babies be all they can be. Again, that's www.mypetmatrix.com and receive a 15% discount with promo code Denise15 at checkout. DENISE 15. Well, hey, we're back. And we're talking in the first half about navigating fragile feelings and how to just kind of start taking emotional fragility, which is basically the way you process your emotions and your relationships with them, right? We talked about how many people have unhealthy relationships with their emotions because simply we're afraid of them. And how do we stop feeling so fragile, right? Cultivating healthy skepticism of your own thoughts. Go ahead and listening to your thoughts, but don't be afraid to dismiss them. I can't even talk today. To dismiss, I did it again. To dismiss them if they need to be. Good Lord. So we went through just some traps that we fall in, and one of them was trusting our thoughts, which we just talked about. Relying on coping skills, because coping skills can be habits and habits can be bad. So we just need to identify the coping skills and flip them to a better habit. Breaking promises to ourselves. Simply because, if we can't keep a promise to ourselves, how we intend to trust ourselves, it just is what it is. One of my favorites, going with the flow. Now, I never thought I did, but I really did. And there's nothing wrong with being easygoing, okay? I was never really easygoing, but there was a time I tried to be as easygoing as I could be. But if you're always going with the flow and following somebody else, you're probably keeping yourself emotionally fragile, right? I was. And I thought, for me, the problem with always going with the flow is that it's a lie. At some point, if you're not taking the lead with your own thoughts and feelings, you're not being true to yourself. So you're lying to yourself. So when you're habitually deferring your own wants and needs for other people's, we're lying to ourselves and to others about our real true desires, okay? And what we're valuing in life. And so going with the flow, it doesn't do anything but make you feel bad about yourself. It's also going to lower your self-esteem. Here comes in, as soon as low self-esteem walks in the door, fragile feelings walks in right behind her. And so if you don't always go with the flow, right? Think about it. Your husband suggests he wants to go to a certain restaurant, right? And he doesn't know that you don't like that restaurant, but you keep going. If you're always going, he's never going to know you hate it. But when you bring it up, he's going to think you're insane. And you're also at one point going to start harboring some resentment because we're women. So we automatically assume they can read our thoughts. Let's just be honest. And then all of a sudden, we're just like, I can't believe you didn't know I hated that restaurant. And they're like, no, we really had no idea. Because they didn't, because you didn't say anything, because you went with the flow. And now you've been eating at the same restaurant for a year and a half, and you just told them you hated it in a total blowout and meltdown in the kitchen because you wanted Chinese food. I'm just saying. Could be a true story, could not be. True story. But it's the same at work. If you're going with the flow at work and you're saying yes to everything, your superiors, I hate to say that word, but your managerial team, your, whatever, they're not going to know that you're burnt out and unhappy. Now, you want to know that some people care, Okay, I'm not going to discuss corporate America right now, but they don't know. At least if you're giving them an indication by not going with the flow, they're going to see, right? If you're going with the flow like I do, and I always host Thanksgiving and all the holidays at my house, my family's never going to understand why I'm always irritable and resentful towards them. Because I always have Thanksgiving and Halloween and Christmas. And why do I do this? Because I like the way I cook, and I'm usually so freaking exhausted by the end of it that I can't bear to go to somebody's house. It just takes too much out of you when you have autoimmune. But I also like a nice holiday. So it'll take me sometimes weeks to actually be doing what I'm doing. And then they come and want leftovers and stuff. And it's like bing, bang, bomb. They're out of the house. And I feel like I've just been like, assaulted. It's just crazy. But, it seems nice, right? But it's actually the opposite. It's a lie. Going with the flow is a lie that ends up hurting everybody in the end. It just is what it is, right? You just have to build up the courage over time to be more expressive of what you really want. But you want to be confident, but you also want to practice assertiveness with kindness, okay? Because again, we talked about being assertive in other episodes. Being assertive means you're just willing to express your wants and needs, right? In a way that's true to yourself, but respectful to others, right? It always has to be respectful to others. And kindness is a skill that anyone can learn, despite what is happening in the world today. It can be learned. And the squeaky wheel always gets to grease. So when you hear all this negative stuff and all these crazy, mean people all over reels and all the TikTokers and all that, know that it's because that is a small majority of evil and mean people that are getting the grease. So I always say, if we're leading with kindness, we're eventually going to take over the world. And it's going to be like really scary at first to do this shit. But I'll be honest with you, it's really improved all my relationships. And the most important relationship it improved was the one with myself. And that's what we're talking about here, right? Okay, another one that is a really bad trap is being judgmental with ourselves. It's super sad that most of us grow up learning that the only way to properly motivate ourselves is to get tough with ourselves. This is me. Oh, yes. I was a hard ass on myself. And I mean, just like anything that you would see, like I was a drill sergeant. It wasn't even funny. And, growing up and going to a, Catholic grammar school, that was even greater internalized within me from a young age, that unless we're beating ourselves up with lots of self-criticism and tough self-talk and that we're going to end up slacking off and not performing and be like homeless. Honest to gosh. And, it's okay to not beat yourself up because you didn't do something. Maybe you just weren't feeling it. I've really felt that the last couple of weeks, after the surgery. I mean, it's going on 4.5 weeks now. It's hard. It's real hard. How long is it? I don't even know. Look at me looking at my calendar. Oh, it's been 3.5 weeks. And it's been rough having to not do stuff, to let other people do. It got to the point where I was just like, I just can't do it. It's going to interfere with my recovery. And my recovery is already a poop show. So I just need to stop being judgmental with myself about it and just let it go and just worry about myself. This one little thing is all I need to concentrate on right now. And, the thing is that, this whole culture of growing up and being tough with ourselves, kids fall, they cry. I'm guilty of it too. Oh, don't cry. What do you mean don't cry? I just fell off a tree. But that's what we do. Don't cry. It'll be okay. Will it? I don't know. I mean, most likely it will be. But because our families and this culture glorifies performance and success, right? And in most cases, a lot of academic success. So this hits our kids, right? We end up having our self-worth tied to the ability to achieve and be successful. Not even on the same, not the same whatsoever. And so we come to over rely on judgmentalness and self-criticism as a motivator. And that's a problem, because although fear is an effective motivator in the short term, long term, disaster to the emotions, right? If you're only doing fear as an effective motivator in the long term, that's going to have disastrous consequences. It's going to be horrible. And if we're constantly critical and judgmental with ourselves, you start to feel as if you're just not good enough. I mean, is this hitting home for you? Because it hit home for me. And then you got to double down and get even tougher with yourself. And then what happens? You feel even worse because you're doubled down in it. And in order to create a healthy relationship with the emotions, and as you start to be able to manage them effectively, you got to get gentle and compassionate with yourself. And it's pretty hard to feel confident when you're judgmental with yourself every time you feel afraid or you're trying something new. It's pretty hard to feel motivated when you're judgmental with yourself every time you lack energy or enthusiasm to do something. And that might be just because you're tired, or maybe just because you don't feel good, or you're already overworked and overtaxed. It's pretty hard to feel good about ourselves when we're constantly trash talked in our own heads. So we need to start practicing a little self-compassion, and we're going to find that we are far more resilient than you ever thought possible. I was shocked. This is so this one, this hits a little this is actually still a little, this next one is, it hits me home still, and that's reassurance seeking. And this stems from, my daddy issues, and that, being fragile, feeling, people sometimes get stuck in the habit of asking for reassurance anytime they feel scared, sad, or upset, or just looking for any kind of reassurance, whether it be good or positive, could be bad. On some level, it makes sense, right? But if you don't trust yourself to manage difficult feelings, at least somewhat well, and someone else you do trust tells you everything's going to be okay, that's not a good strategy at all. Chronic reassurance seeking has a big downside, okay? Because every time you ask for reassurance, that means it's a no vote of confidence in yourself. You couldn't even, I spent years looking for reassurance from my father, knowing I would never get it. And every time I did, I dug myself deeper and deeper and deeper into no confidence, right? But think about it from the perspective of my brain, right? If every time I feel bad, I'm immediately rushing to have my dad make me feel better, what does that say about my own self-confidence and my belief in myself? Coming from an alcoholic father on top of that. It's like sick and twisted, peeps, but this is how it works. This is how our mind works, with, especially when it starts as children. I try my best to do whatever I can so that Peter doesn't have to have as much therapy as I did. Because I feel like everybody at some point in their life needs therapy. I want to try to reduce the amount of time he spends in the therapist chair and is not there for 40 years like I am. If you want to be more emotionally resistant, more confident, okay, what did I have to do? I had to be willing to tolerate the temporary discomfort of dealing with my own feelings, right? Hard to navigate, but I had to do it myself. Put my big girl pants on and dilly, okay? A child is never going to learn how to tie their own shoes if we're always doing it for them. Think about it that way. If you're always asking for somebody's reassurance, whether it be your spouse, a parent, a sister, a friend that you've become like basically addicted to, because that's what it is, this reassurance, right? You're never going to learn how to manage difficult emotions if you're always outsourcing it to someone else, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. We all need help and support sometimes. But if other people are the default strategy to you and I feeling better, then you might, you got to rethink the game plan. It is what it is, right? And my favorite habit trap for fragile feelings, and I believe I've done an episode on this, and that's staying busy all the time, in the business of being busy, because it is the least well-known habit that leads to fragile feelings, period. And that's constantly staying busy. People like myself who never let a minute go by without having something to do, I wish I was joking. There's a difference though. So there's a way to stay highly effective and motivated, but not ever spend a moment to yourself. And it's a fine line, but that line is a big difference between healthy and unhealthy. So I always kept my schedule packed. I always had stuff to do in the house. I never had space to do anything. And you know what that included? Not having space to have a freaking breakdown, right? Or the chance of being alone with my own thoughts. See how that works? Now, I like being alone because now I'll do my gratitude. And, again, sometimes gratitude every morning really changes the tone of your entire day. Try it for 5 days. I implore you, and you will see the difference. If I don't do gratitude, just 3 things every morning, it really sets the tone. So sometimes I have to stop like at 11 o'clock and be like, why am I turning into a raving maniac? Well, did you do your, gratitude this morning, Denise? And I'm like, dang it, I did not. And so I'll sit down with a book and I'll write it down. And sometimes it could be God, my health, and my family. And sometimes it's coffee, and God. And you know what? It's even in that order. So, it doesn't matter. You're not judged by your gratitude. Sometimes we're happy to have coffee and that we woke up in the morning. And you know what? By gosh, that's good enough reason. So when you are preoccupying yourself with all of this staying busy all the time to avoid your feelings, right? It makes you feel productive. It can make you feel like that, right? But it's just a mask for something unhealthy, because constant busyness is often a primitive defense mechanism for avoiding painful feelings, okay? Your relationship's unhappy, you're too afraid or ashamed to improvement, so constant busyness helps you avoid your husband or your spouse, right? Significant other, right? If you're deep down, profoundly unhappy in your work, you're just going to keep really busy at work so you don't have to talk to anybody or even like come up with it. You're going to be in, punch in, work like a horse and a dog, punch out, and that's it. And you're going to come home and like clean everything in your house. You're going to constantly be moving. If you're afraid to be alone with your own thoughts, constant busyness helps you avoid that pain. And the constant busyness also includes I have to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend at every single moment of my life. I was never this person. I stood busy and other, but that includes this. If you constantly jump from relationship to relationship, or you're in the middle of a divorce and you're seeing somebody else, even though you're not divorced yet, but you keep telling yourself that you've been separated, so it's okay. Stop. Personal opinion, because I know several friends who've went through it, and I helped them as much as I could. And I will stand and maintain my stance. And that if you are going through a breakup, a divorce, or any kind of split from a relationship with anyone, you need time to yourself, not with someone else to mask the pain. You need to feel those pains, approach those feelings, deal with them so you can be healed, whole, complete, and then search for a partner or a new person of some sort, whatever tickles your fancy. And you're doing that as 100% you, not vindictive enemy bringing every suitcase. You're going on a trip. You have one carry-on and 9,000 emotional pounds of luggage. Stop. I'll never understand why people do not understand this. I never jumped from boyfriend to boyfriend. I will not. I cannot. I like being by myself. Sorry for the tangent. I know you guys like it. But, you know, the constant busyness was going to temporarily help you avoid pains, but it never really addresses them. You're literally you're kicking the can, okay? You're kicking the can. They're just festering. They're growing bigger. You have to figure it, right? Chronic busyness is a form of emotional procrastination. It's exactly what it is. I'm looking for a word. I'm like, what the hell is the word? Emotional procrastination. You're putting off the hard work of dealing with painful feelings by always having something to do. Because ultimately, if you want to end the cycle of emotional fragility and become more resilient, you're going to have to start facing your fears and dealing with them head on. But you can only do this if you're freeing up a little time in your schedule to self-reflect and ask yourself what needs to be addressed. And that's just, I mean, it's not easy, but those are just little things that I found. I had like 26 points, okay? I dealt with 7 today. But please, fragile feelings are everything, but there's so many things that we can look at internally. I spend so much time pointing to other people for my problems, or, you know, why me, or victim, or, you know, being known basically as the cancer girl in your family forever. And, you know, it's always something with her, you know, and rumors and, you know, and I used to let that just eat me alive. And now it's like, you know what? I know my truth. I know what happens. They don't. And I always love when people point fingers at other people and talk, but then they got a ton of skeletons in their own closet, which is why it really truly is none of my business what other people think of me, because it's their business, not mine. I can only tend to my own business. And I recommend that everyone else who listens does the same. Thanks for listening in today. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me or hit me up on the Finding Calm in the Chaos Facebook page. Also, you can send me an email at sithdenise@gmail.com. And again, subscribe to my YouTube channel. We've got some big stuff coming up. Until then, lead with kindness. Thank you, friends, for spending this time with me today. If you found some calm listening in, please take a moment to subscribe to Finding Calm in the Chaos. And just so you don't miss out on future episodes, make sure you're receiving notifications. Thanks again. Until next time, lead with kindness.